In the early hours of July 2nd, 1996, SETI's radio telescope array in New Mexico detected a signal originating from the moon. Within hours, United States Space Command had identified the true source of the signal, an enormous object, roughly 550 kilometers in diameter, on a direct course for Earth. As this object grew closer, satellites became impaired, and all across the planet, communications were disrupted. It was the source of this disruption that would provide the first clue to the events to come. As this object, now unequivocally identified as an alien spacecraft, settled into orbit, a second hidden signal was uncovered inside Earth's own satellite systems, a countdown to the eradication of humanity and the beginning of the War of 1996. Unbeknownst to all but the highest members of certain intelligence agencies, the arrival of the alien species that would become known as the Harvesters was in fact the culmination of decades of clandestine reconnaissance. The Harvesters had selected the Earth as a potential target, seemingly as early as the 1940s. They identified cultural hubs and military strongpoints, analyzed international geopolitical relations, and the strengths and weaknesses of individual countries and alliances. This reconnaissance took the form of orbital surveillance, human abductions, and at times, aerial reconnaissance flights. It was during one such flight, likely intended to monitor American nuclear testing, that a Harvester scout ship crash-landed in New Mexico. Recovered by the United States government, this craft and its occupants were relocated to the secret military facility, Area 51. At this site, continuous attempts to reverse engineer the Harvester's technology were made. With the end of the Cold War, the decline in worldwide nuclear stockpiles and conventional military forces, the Harvesters were given the opportune moment to strike. The enormous spacecraft deployed to the solar system in 1996, dubbed the Mothership, contained tens of millions of troops, their associated transports, and most critically, several dozen city-sized destroyers, the Harvester's primary offensive weapon. The deployment of these destroyers to major cities across the world constituted the first dramatic reveal of the Harvester's presence to the vast majority of the human population. The worldwide response was initially chaotic, with mass panic in the streets of the affected cities, while national governments appealed for calm. Regardless, large, disorderly evacuations occurred in nearly every major city. It was the MIT-trained David Levinson who identified the nature of the satellite disruption and the hostile intent of the Harvesters. Utilizing his personal connections, he arranged a meeting with American President Thomas Whitmore, but was able to provide only a few minutes of warning. President Whitmore and other high-level administration officials were hastily evacuated, only barely managing to escape the Harvesters' opening attack. On July 3rd, at 2:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the 36 destroyers deployed to Earth simultaneously fired advanced energy weapons on their targeted cities. The resulting detonations were comparable to a high-yield nuclear weapon, with a blast wave expanding from the hypocenter for roughly 15 miles. The first wave annihilated cities in 28 nations. In nearly every instance, national capitals had been targeted, with multiple cities destroyed in the United States, Canada, Russia, India, and the People's Republic of China. The affected nations and their military allies immediately attempted a desperate counterattack. These were largely uncoordinated at the international level, with individual nations looking instead towards their own defense. In every instance, conventional weapons detonated harmlessly on some type of advanced shielding, invisible until activated, but present on every Harvester craft. The destroyers, in turn, deployed their own formations of attack craft, massacring the human forces sent against them. Following this initial engagement, the destroyers were redeployed to a second set of targets. Again, these were major cities, or those with strong military presence. Simultaneously, Harvester attack craft destroyed major military facilities, air bases, and shipyards. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex was among these secondary targets, killing the United States Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Vice President, and thousands of other high-level military and civilian officials. Similar attacks destroyed NATO headquarters in Brussels and other Western, Asian, and former Soviet command and control centers. Having finally been informed of the existence of Area 51 and the alien technology housed there, President Whitmore inspected the site personally. A chance encounter with a live Harvester pilot, downed and captured by U.S. Marine Corps Captain Stephen Hiller, gave President Whitmore a unique insight into the aliens' motives. Through some sort of extrasensory connection, Whitmore became aware of the Harvester's galaxy-wide genocide, which was just beginning to repeat itself on Earth. With any sort of surrender or armistice impossible, the United States made preparations for a nuclear strike on a destroyer positioned over Houston, Texas. Other nuclear-armed states agreed not to launch their own arsenals until the result of the Houston strikes were clear. Ultimately, even a nuclear warhead deployed from stealthed B-2 bombers failed to penetrate the aliens' shields, and further nuclear attacks were called off. Destroyers annihilated another 32 targets, with the complete destruction of every major city on the planet estimated to occur in the next 2 days. Within Area 51, however, the captured alien craft had reactivated itself, providing new insights into the Harvester's technology. David Levinson, now working with the secret facility's own staff, developed a means to turn the invasive signal still present in Earth satellites against the invaders. By transmitting a specially coded virus directly into the mothership, the Harvester's defensive shields could be shut down, enabling a single worldwide counterattack. The mothership would then in turn be destroyed by a nuclear weapon detonated from within the massive vessel. The July 4th counterattack began in New Mexico, where a destroyer, now aware of the presence of Area 51, was en route. American military aircraft and ground assets launched the first strike. Now finally able to inflict substantial damage, a ferocious dogfight ensued between evenly matched fighter aircraft and alien attackers. President Whitmore himself took part in the aerial campaign, one of hundreds of military veterans drafted back into active service. Ultimately, however, it was another civilian pilot, a former aviator who had served in the Vietnam War, who delivered the critical blow. With his final missile suffering from a technical malfunction, Russell Case piloted his F-18 Hornet directly into the destroyer's primary weapon, igniting an explosive chain reaction that destroyed the entire ship. In orbit, the last moments of tens of millions of Harvesters was spent trying to decipher the sudden appearance of a twisted, grinning skull, mocking the alien invaders before the entire ship was vaporized. The destruction of the mothership disoriented the remaining destroyers on Earth, and prevented the virus from being successfully removed. Human military forces across the planet, now aware of the destroyer's weak point, brought down every ship save one, ending the War of '96 in an unexpected triumph for mankind. But it was a triumph achieved at tremendous cost. 108 cities had been destroyed, nearly half the world's population killed, and the political and military leadership of the planet almost completely decapitated. While the war was largely over, isolated alien ground elements conducted a fierce guerrilla war across Russia and Africa, only eradicated after nearly a decade of resistance. The War of 1996 also gave the human race something it had lacked in all its history: a common cause. Armed with this newfound sense of self-awareness, the United Nations was imbued with greater purpose. In the following years, humanity would not only rebuild all that was lost, but expand across the solar system, creating a new line of defense should the Harvesters ever return.
In high command, the Templin Institute investigates the greatest battles, conflicts, and wars from across alternate worlds. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to join the Templin Institute, consider pledging to our Patreon page. Along with increased security access, you'll be able to vote in polls to determine future topics, get custom wallpaper every week, and receive some other exclusive rewards.